Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Indie Arena booth here at Gamescom 2019. My name is Ashley Alicea, and I'm an evangelist at Unity Technologies. And we're so excited to be here today supporting game developers across the conference here at Gamescom.
My name is Ciro. I'm also a technical evangelist like Ashley. I'm from the European team, while Ashley's from the American team. So, as Ashley was saying, Unity has a big presence at Gamescom. We're going to go into more detail on what Unity is, and as a company and as a software. But what I want to say is, the presence that we have here is dual,
Yes,
right? We
absolutely.
have a presence at the. I don't know if you know, the Gamescom is divided into business area and consumer area. So Unity has a big presence in the business area where we have some mini talks for developers. There's obviously some business meeting, stuff going on.
We also have lots of demos and resources that we're sharing with our community. Basically, our kind of sector in the business area is where we're meeting all of our creators face-to-face and sharing with them all the new tools and resources that they're able to use for their Unity creations, whether it be for games or film and beyond.
Which is basically our job, right? Our job as technical evangelists, that's what we do. We are the first contact of Unity with the public, if you want, and we provide support to developers that want to learn, that want to update themselves on Unity and stuff like that. And then we have a presence here in the consumer area, which is where we're streaming from, in the form of the Indie Arena booth, which is the biggest booth at Gamescom, hosting, actually I don't know how many games, I think in the dozens of games,
Yep.
And 75% of those games are actually made with Unity. So we decided to support the booth. So again, we have plenty of Unity-made games in the booth. And then another part that we're also supporting, and I want to show actually a video so you can see, I hope you can see the video feed. This is basically the Indie Arena booth, just to give you an idea. As you can see, plenty of games, back to back, plenty of players, of course, that are enjoying these games. And as I said, many of them are made with Unity. Let's try to switch the sound source. It's not a great sound feed because, of course, it's just noise from the...
So, mostly, okay.
Okay, never mind. There's no sound. It's fine. So, as you can see, this is the Indie Arena booth. And then the other part that we're sponsoring here at the Indie Arena booth, which I think is very important to talk about, is the accessibility area. So the Indie Arena booth has created this corner that you can see here that we're sponsoring, which has some special controllers. Some of them are the Microsoft Accessibility Controller, as you can see, this one here, that gives you this interface where you can plug different types of buttons and joysticks to really create the joystick that is the controls that are accessible to all types of player. So through a charity from the UK, Special Effect, we're powering this area, part of this area.
And so, with the two experiences that we have here at Gamescom, really, again, we want to support the game creators who are using Unity. But many of you at home might be asking, what is Unity?
Yep.
How is it being used for game development? And so, and it's actually a fun question for me to answer all the time when I'm speaking to folks who are really interested in games but aren't necessarily game creators here at Gamescom. And really, what Unity is a software to combine all the different little aspects that make up a video game. For example, you have your characters, your environment, your audio, your music, your code, and more. And you assemble these all into Unity. You add things like game logic or movement to your characters or dialogue and more. And through using the Unity game engine, you can create your game experience, and you could export it to multiple different platforms as well. Mm-hmm. So whether you want to create a mobile game, a PC game, even games for virtual reality, augmented reality, even smartwatches and messenger games. It's all possible with Unity.
We have a small trailer here. I don't know if you can hear the sound, but you can see what it shows. This is showing kind of like the wider range of stuff that you can make with Unity. So as Ashley was saying, it goes from games to architectural stuff to industry stuff. I think we have sound now. Yeah. And yeah.
And so here in this video, you can see a bunch of previews of some experiences in games made with Unity, and we're going to preview some of those later in the stream. But again, You can make it with code or without code for your games with Unity. You can work on your own or you can work with a team. And really, it's just a really flexible tool to create the types of experiences that you want to make, regardless of what kind of creator you are in this industry.
I really love this video.
Yes. I like the song.
So what is Unity? And in the space of this stream, I wanted to give a little bit of history of Unity. I think it's fun to hear because some of you might be familiar, but some of you might not. Basically, Unity was born something like 15 years ago. It was a moment when other types of software were around and people were using them to make games. At that point, the Flash market was huge. Do you remember Flash, right? I mean, Flash is still alive in some way, but at that point, it was peaking. There was a lot of web games made with Flash, and everybody was playing Flash games, in addition to, obviously, the big AAA games. And that was a moment when people could pick up Flash to make games on their own, like individuals from their bedroom, they could make a game and potentially make money with that, right? And then there was a gap at some point. Flash couldn't go on mobile. And that's when Unity was born, just slightly before that. And that's when Unity became big, when it suddenly was a good way to get on mobile, right? And suddenly Apple came up with the iOS, with the iPhone, and with the App Store.
The App Store, yeah.
And then one year they opened it to the public, and suddenly one of the few options that you had to go on iPhone was Unity, and that's when it exploded. And everybody was creating these small games, and then bigger games. And some studios built their fortune around these small mobile games.
Yep, absolutely.
That look small on the surface, but they can be quite deep. So for instance, here we have a reel of mobile games. These are modern ones. These just came out or are coming out very soon. Just to give you an idea of the kind of experiences that we're talking about. Sometimes they're small in scale, but big in graphics, or vice versa. They have like a big scale even though they're on mobile.
Yeah, and Unity has changed a lot since the first days of creating apps for the first App Store. Now you can create incredibly powerful performing games for mobile using Unity. And these are just a couple of examples of the really fun ones that are coming out around this year. Donut County is one of my favorites. So much
I bet
fun.
some of these games have passed through the Indie Arena booth through the years.
Absolutely.
I think Donut County was here? I don't know. Anyway, this is just to show you the range of stuff that you can create with Unity. And then, of course, the software has evolved through the years. So again, we started with very, very simple experiences that were possible at the time, kind of like simpler in graphics, and maybe closer to the Flash world that we were used to. And then it evolved and evolved. And now these days, you see stuff made with Unity that looks like this, right?
Yeah.
This is a reel of more recent games. Yeah, let me lower the volume.
So again, Unity isn't just for mobile, even though that's how kind of where our roots began, but now it's become an incredibly powerful tool for creating game experiences across many different platforms. And now a lot of incredible console and PC games are being made with Unity as well. As you can see here in this video, these are all gorgeous, and these are all achievable with a lot of the new features and updates that has been added to Unity since all these years. We have a massive research and development team, the team working on the engine around the clock, basically, adding all the tools that game developers need to create gorgeous experiences like this.
One of the biggest advantages of Unity is just this ability to go to different platforms with the same project, which is something that's really useful especially for indie developers, because sometimes indie developers don't have the strength of outputting to all of the platforms at the same time. But then later on, they might think of going, maybe they publish on PC and then they make the mobile version. And that's where the software shines, because it really allows you to reuse the same assets with a few modifications, few optimizations, of course, and then go on mobile. Maybe rethink the input and stuff like that. But you have that ability, which can be a lifesaver for indie developers.
Yep.
I don't know if there's some developers in the chat. If you're watching us in the stream, please feel free to ask questions.
If you're working on a Unity game and you're in the chat, let us know. We'd love to hear.
Even if you don't.
Even if you're not and you want to, let us know.
If you have questions, we can answer them. We can answer them live.
Yes.
In time, we of course, there's many companies that make things with Unity, but we build our own demos, right?
Yep.
So, for example, Megacity is one of them, which really shows the kind of scale that we want to, we're aiming for with the engine. Actually, you wanna
Yeah, no, and like with Megacity, like
explain what's going on here?
no, sure. So we have this is our Megacity demo where it's created with the Unity entity component system with our job system, our burst compiler, and basically these are tools that allow creators to really maximize their performance for their game creations. And we wanted to take that tech and make it into a demo so people could actually see what this means. And what does it mean in this context? A huge, massive city that you're flying through. And look at all the details that are in there. Everything from all the lights, the neon signs, the balconies, the air conditioners. Even when you get up close to the air conditioner, you can see all the little blades within the fans within it. It's incredible the level of detail that this city has. And it's all achievable thanks to our new
This
entity
new
component
technology
system.
that you mentioned.
Yep.
There was some funny comments online, people comparing this demo to Cyberpunk.
Okay, yep.
Cyberpunk 20.
Or 2077. I hear also lots of comparisons to Fifth Element.
Yeah.
But I think
They're a bit unfair, to be honest, because this demo it's just a tech demo, right? So it's an empty, it's not really empty, it's a full scene, but it's empty in terms of gameplay, right? So
but still, this is the first
to be
step.
honest,
Yes.
Cyberpunk runs so much more stuff, so they can't really get to this level of detail. But also, this tech is so new, we ourselves are still developing it. So actually, developers are just starting using it. So you might see some increase in scale in games in the coming years. That's quite interesting.
Someone in the chat works with Unity in their university. That's awesome. I'm glad you loved it.
What is this thing that I'm showing now? Well, I'm not going to show the whole thing.
Ooh, it's one of my favorites. No, you do it. You do it better. But I love this. I'll admire it.
Better. I mean, so this is another example of stuff that is made with Unity lately. This is more of a linear experience. It's actually just a short cinematic. It's like a cutscene. If you want, or cutscene, I guess. Or
it's a short cinematic, and so that's actually a really interesting thing that I see a lot of creators aren't even really aware of at the moment, and it's that Unity is actually being used in a lot of industries outside of game development. So I think that's really exciting. I'm actually the evangelist at Unity for games and media and entertainment. So I work with not just game studios, but also film companies and more, because they're using Unity to create cinematic shorts. They're using it for example, real-time production in real movies. Like, for example,
cool. That's something that really needs to be mentioned.
Yes, like Ready Player One,
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, thank you as well.
Extent,
These movies actually have Unity as part of the creation process to kind of essentially see your digital elements in a scene in a green screen set. Which is really cool. Or another use case for Unity for film is something like this clip where you're creating an animated short. For example, even Disney's Big Hero 6 Baymax Dreams shorts on YouTube, those are all created with Unity as well.
Yeah, so there's basically two use cases, right? Like in one side, you have stuff that you render completely in Unity, like this short video. And the one is the one you mentioned before, Ready Player One, and this one's which don't actually make the movie in here, in Unity. They make the movie somewhere else, but through the use of Unity, they can visualize the virtual backgrounds that don't exist yet, maybe with the real actor on top through green screen. And they blend the two things, and then the director has an idea of how the shot looks like.
And this is kind of a good point to something that you were saying earlier, where let's say you're an indie creator and you are making your game for a PC, but you want to make a version of it for mobile. You can do that because Unity exports to several platforms, but we're also seeing creators use Unity now to make their trailers or cinematics for their games in engine by using tools like Timeline and Post-Processing Stack to actually edit and fine-tune what they're creating in Unity for actual cinematics or little videos that they're creating with their game content, which is very exciting. So it helps you save a lot of time and a lot of resources, and you can get not just games from your one experience, but also film.
Yep. This is another example. It's called The Heretic. We just unveiled it like a few months ago.
Yes.
Again, it's a short movie, and it really shows you like how further you can push the realism in rendering in real time. So all of this stuff we will be able to open the scene in the editor and actually rotate the camera, tweak the lights. The companion,
Boston, the bird.
Boston, the thing that like wraps around on the walls that you see here, you're going to see in a second, that's actually completely dynamic. So it's not pre-animated by an animator, but there's a script that looks for walls, for nearby walls, and as you move the object, you see the one working on the wall on the left now, as you move the object close to the wall, it will wrap around it dynamically, and that's super cool. And that's something that for directors and animators is incredible, because if they decide to change the scene at a second time, they can just move that thing and they don't need to remake the animation. So there's a lot of...
It's incredible.
Yeah,
like when I've kind of gone through this demo with a couple of folks here at Gamescom, and one thing is like, if I want to change the direction and the area which the bird flies in, how, like if I want to move those wires that are there on the wall right now, do I have to reanimate all of that? And I just open up the project and I show them that we move some predetermined points in the scene where we're telling the bird to kind of move through. And in real time, it just actually changes the direction for you because it's doing that calculation in real time instead of having a static animation. Really powerful stuff. This demo is actually one of my favorites coming out of the Unity demo team. And really, it shows kind of our big focus now is supporting creators who want to create stunning visual experiences with adding new tools to Unity, like the HD render pipeline, shader graph, the ability to create shaders for your games without having to code. You could use a drag and drop node-based system. The same with visual effect graph. Some of the special effects used here in this project are made using a drag and drop node-based system. That
was part of the video that we showed before, right? Like for everyone, meaning that normally, a long time ago, games were a thing for programmers, and then now, of course, Unity and other technologies want to open that to everyone. So we really need to support that, and that's what we're doing, especially in the last few years, couple of years.
Whether you are a programmer, an artist, you name it, like Unity is focusing on making its tools much more accessible to be able to create experiences like we just showed you now with the Heretic.
So, what is this Unity? We talked about Unity, but how does the editor look like, right?
Yes.
So let's show it a little bit. So we've shown you a few different type of experiences, movies, short movies, but I wanted to show you something very, very simple. So going back to some of the things that Unity does best, like mobile games. This is the thing you can see here is the editor itself. So it's Unity. And I want to show it in the context of like a small mobile game that I actually made myself. So we haven't said it, but part of our job is making small demos, right?
Absolutely. One of the best parts of our job.
Yeah, it's one of the most fun parts, right? So we normally, as evangelists, we get tasked with showcasing new features, right? And we decide to do that through small demos that we piece together as fast as we can, because things are always like...
And really they're made, we make these demos like small and quickly to showcase a specific feature or function within Unity to show creators how they could use it in their own projects. Ciro,
which has its challenges, right? Like we always want to make things that are quite simple and digestible, easy to digest, and that's one of them. So this thing here, for example, is it's kind of like a mobile game, kind of like a Clash Royale type of game, where you have this map seen from above. And you see now I'm playing the game within Unity, right? So I have my cards, and the AI is going to play some cards, and I can like spawn my units and have a battle, right? And they're fighting with each other. So it's a fully functional game. It's not really fun, if you want, because of course it's a demo. But it's interesting for me to show you how Unity works. So as you can see here, I'm playing the game within Unity. This is what we call the game view. And in the game view, I can literally play the game from the point of view of the player. I have these buttons here at the top, play, pause, and step. And I can literally pause the game at any point, and I can go to the scene view and navigate in the 3D scene, which, as you can see, is pretty condensed in some way. This is a small game.
You want to focus on the level.
And specifically for this game, which is seen from the top, right, from this point of view, if you were to rotate the camera, you wouldn't see much. And this is like typical of games. Again, if you if you only see games from the point of view of the player, you probably don't know this, but games are full of smokes and mirrors,
Yep.
right? Like you turn the camera and there's nothing in the background. So that's very typical.
Yep.
I would be crazy to decorate the back of this scene when nobody's
When no one's
actually
going to see it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
So-
how games are assembled for the most part.
Yeah.
And kind of like to recap, especially for those here who don't have experience with development, this is how your kind of Unity scene looks. So you assemble it here in your scene view that Ciro's looking through right now. You have your characters. We have the game code that's making the characters run through the scene. It's currently paused right now. But very easily, as you just saw earlier, Ciro had a scene set up, and then he could press play, and all the different little aspects of the game work together, the code, the animation, and more, and immediately start playing a version of the game that Ciro can play and test and refine until he has the final game project that he wants to export.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, I can pause the game. I can inspect all of the objects that make the game. You can see them here on the left. There's plenty of them. Like games, obviously, are super complex entities, if you want. And on the right here, I have this panel is called the inspector. So as I select any of my objects, I'm able to inspect them. For example, I select this archer here, and you can see here I have all of the components that make the character itself. So you have, as usual in games, you have like a graphics part and an AI part, and they come together to make the behavior of the game. So yeah, this is the scene view, as I said. It's a very, very quick tour, right? Like, I'm not gonna hope that you learn to use Unity within this demo. As you can see, I can unpause the game, and now the scene is empty again, and I can make my modifications. Like, for instance, I could go to this character here, and as Ashley mentioned before, Unity now has like a timeline tool. So let's say that, for instance, I want to enable this intro timeline here. And I want to go here and disable the auto start. So now the game is actually going to play an animation. Let me show you the animation very quickly. So you see I press play, and now I see the animation. These two warriors are spawned, and he laughs and spawns some warriors back. And now the game starts, right? And all of these camera movements, all of the animation stuff, I can piece it together within Unity. So if I were
Show
to
the timeline, yeah.
if I were to show the timeline panel, I can select the intro timeline, and you see all is here. There's the camera work, there's the animation work, and as I scrub, I can see. Oops, the audio is.
That's
a bit
fine.
weird.
And really, like, now for those of you who are coming from a film background, let's say, these tools are definitely a lot more familiar to you than maybe traditional game development tools. So again, kind of, there are a lot of opportunities, kind of regardless of your background, to have your own creations being made in Unity.
Yeah,
Now-
I'm not going to make some modification because if I do, I'll break it. I just
Don't break
know-
the demo. Not now.
I just know that
One thing I kind of wanted to say also, like, we're talking about all this stuff, we're getting a little bit technical, and I actually wanted to share one of the kind of frequent questions that I'm getting at Gamescom as I'm going around and talking to actually not just game creators, but also gamers who are here at the conference, and they want to create their own video games. You know, they often ask me, you know, I would like to make a video game. How do I get started? Can I get started with Unity? And I actually kind of just wanted to put it out there that yes, it's absolutely possible to get started making your own game today in the Unity editor. There's tons of resources that we're going to share later during this talk. But if you're watching this and you're really interested and you're hearing all these tools and you're like, wow, what is this? It's actually very accessible to learn. So.
Yeah, and that's what we do sometimes, right? Like we teach people how to use Unity. How did
Absolutely.
you learn Unity, actually? Let's open up to the...
I had the weirdest transition. So I was studying zoology before I got into game development, and I worked with
That's why
tarantulas.
you're obsessed with zoos and
Yes,
animals.
Planet Zoo. I've been very excited for the Planet Zoo booth here. I'm sorry, but I worked with tarantulas and insects in a lab, and I by chance came across a game development class, and I thought, you know, what is this? Like, this is amazing. I want to try game development, and it was done using Unity. So I started, you know, learning a little bit of Unity. I took a class, And then I realized that I much prefer dealing with software bugs than real actual bugs. So I like switched my studies completely and I got into game development and I learned Unity all online for the most part. I followed online tutorials, I hung out on the forums, and I went from knowing absolutely nothing about game development, even though I've been a gamer my entire life. And I was able to make my first game in a couple of months, which
So
was
what
incredible.
age did you start?
I was 19.
19. That's pretty young. That's
19,
pretty young.
20-ish? Yeah, 20,
Okay.
20. Yep.
There's some people who start at 13. I mean, but like,
We go to our events, right? And
because
we have
what
kids.
my message was like, it's never too late to start.
Absolutely. Oh,
were
no.
young.
Yep. It's, oh, yeah. Well, I felt like I got started later than everyone else because I was already in college about to finish my degree. I was in my final year. And so I thought, is it too late to become a game developer? I should have studied earlier, but no. And I really thank Unity for that. Obviously, I'm biased in saying that right now, but this was way before I worked for Unity. But it gave me the resources and kind of community I needed to start making my first game.
Yeah, the way I learned was exactly what I mentioned before, coming from the Flash world. So I was making games in Flash, and then I saw this software, and I was like, oh my god, this looks cool, and it's my only way to go on iOS and iPad at the time. I was making this game, so I started looking into it, and I learned, I guess, with the online resources that Unity had at the time. So video
many good
tutorial and
ones.
stuff, which actually we can show. So we have the website open here. This is a big staple in Unity. Obviously, there's
Scroll
no
down.
we're not connected to the internet, so but it's called Unity Learn. It's like a subsection of the Unity website.
So in this website, it's actually, and this is kind of the area where I first got started, and it since has been revamped completely actually a few months ago. This is your #1 resource to find all the Unity tutorials you need to learn how to start making your own game. And they actually have made it so that it's like fun, interactive tutorials to follow through as you go through each step. And you could track your completion of each tutorial and more. And it makes it a really fun, almost like you're playing a game, but learning how to make a game,
Yeah.
which I think is a lot of fun.
That's how I learned.
Yeah,
That's how I learned.
absolutely. And through these tutorials, not only can you learn to make different types of games, so you want to learn how to make a 2D game, there is that micro game platformer game right there. You want to learn how to make a 3D racing game, we got you a tutorial right there. And we have dozens, if not hundreds, of tutorials available on this website.
Yep.
And both of us, and probably many people in the community, this was one of the first resources that we started using before becoming game developers.
If there was one suggestion, Ashley, that you would give to a new creator learning making games today, what would it be?
It would be...
You didn't plan for this question.
No, but for me, straight up, it would be not being shy on tools like social media. So when I was getting started with Unity development, I would go to the tutorials and I would follow them. But sometimes I would get stuck and I would have a question. And I didn't know anybody who could help me. And I would Google it and I couldn't find an answer. And so I would just throw up like a question on Twitter or on the forums for Unity. I just say like, hey, I have this question and, can anyone help me? And that is one of the things I love most about Unity. We have the most incredible community I've ever seen.
And it's huge.
And it's huge. There are like hundreds of thousands of Unity creators and we're like, I feel like it's always like we're helping each other out. And so
The
it's,
best thing is when you have an issue,
yep,
there's always somebody that had that issue before you.
absolutely.
So you can like literally Google it and find the solution to that. As new as the technology that you're using might be, there's always something that already used it before, which is incredible.
Yeah,
It's a resource.
and when I see new creators, and I tell them, why don't you just post screenshots of your game on social media, ask for advice. Often we find people are very shy, like, oh no, it's my first game, I don't want to. But like we've all been through that process, and
That's
we all want to
something
help each other succeed. So
As
that's
an indie developer,
yeah.
you learn the hard way.
Yep.
You need to be proactive way before you launch the game. You don't want to wait until the launch to start talking about your game. You need to start talking about it earlier. My suggestion would be don't embark into like a 1 year or 2 year adventure on your first game.
Oh, that's so
Which
true.
is what I did.
That's so true. I did that too.
I did
We
that
all
too.
did it.
When I was learning Unity, I started this development of this game, which I thought it was going to be 6 months, and it turned into a 2-year experience. And I really, really struggled to get to the end because, like as you deal with new technology, as you deal with a word that you don't know, which is like self-publishing, that can be devastating. So for me, it was like a long, long, long experience because I misjudged
Yep.
what I thought it would take me. So start small, try to put something out as fast as possible, because even if you create something small, um, but you publish it, even that small thing is going to give you a taste of, the publishing aspect, what the players expect. I mean, I'm sure here on Twitch, the majority of people that are watching us are players.
Yep.
We know how players can react well or bad to games, what they expect. This managing that expectation between what you can make and what they expect from that genre. Like you say a genre, and people expect so many things.
Yep.
And for a developer, it's really hard to support. So if it's your first game, that gap can be huge.
Yep. So start small. And kind of one tip that I give for developers in that regard is pick one mechanic. Just take one mechanic, and let's say you want to make a platformer where you want your character to just be able to walk and jump. Like, focus on that for your first game. Don't start thinking, I'm going to build 20 levels and add all these different mechanics and enemies and more. Just start out simple, and you could see that it's not as kind of overwhelming or intimidating for a new creator as it might be. And then before you know it, you're going to start making games with one mechanic, and then you're going to add 2 mechanics to your next games, and then all of a sudden you're going to be making games with 10 plus mechanics.
Another good idea is to, if you're really starting and you don't know where to start, a good idea is to take an existing game and try to replicate that. That gives you basically the time to focus on the tech and not worry about the design, right? If you're not a designer and you don't want to care about that, then a good idea is to take that, and then as you become more expert, you can start thinking about putting something new in that proven formula.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's one of the best ways to learn. And that's why some of these games, as you can see, like new user microgame, karting, new user microgame platformer, they focus on one specific aspect, and they teach you only that, because then you can understand it better. So yeah, this is the Learn website that we were mentioning before.
Oh, and also the big event happening next week.
Yes, that's
I'll
something
show them
I
the
was
page.
getting to.
So I stole your thunder. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm really excited about this. So if it is your first time creating a game, or you've never made a game before and you want to get started, we're actually hosting Your First Game Jam event on August 27th. So next week, we're gathering our community online to use these tutorials to make your first game experience. And we have Unity experts that are going to be online on YouTube throughout the whole time, sharing tutorials on how to make each step, answering your questions, and more. So if you want to get started creating your first game next week, right after Gamescom, while you're chilling at home dead from your legs being exhausted, or if you're at home riding off the hype train still, it's a perfect time to get started making your first game creation. So we invite you to join us. You can find the information about this on the Learn page. You could also find it if you search Unity Your First Game Jam on YouTube. You can find it there as well. And we absolutely invite you to join. And we'd love to hear, if you're in the chat and you want to make a video game, we'd love to hear about what you kind of want your first game to be. We're very curious.
So the things like here, for example, the what's his name, Sam, Andre, and Christine are going to focus on. Yeah, the ones who are going to run the jam and are going to actually work on the game.
Like I mentioned, our community is filled with incredible, very talented creators who want to support the other Unity creators out there. And so Sam and Kirsten and more, they are so awesome, and they're volunteering their time for this event to help all our creators.
Yeah, and what they do is they will take the karting example and they will start adding elements to that, right? So exactly what I said before, like taking a staple, something that already exists, and that you know inside out and you know how it should work, and then you twist that to your own liking, and that part is the part that's going to teach you something.
Yep.
This is more focused on game design, I guess.
Yeah. But definitely a level building, game design as well. The assembly of kind of like all your characters and your movement controllers and more. You can learn all of those basics through this event. So it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. And game jams in general, like beside this one, beside the Unity one, if you're a new creator, try starting with a game jam. There's Global Game Jam, for example, that happens all around the world. We actually
That's how we met.
Yeah.
We met through Global Game Jam. That's another great event to check out. It's 90-something countries around the world over the same weekend make video games together under the same theme. And so Unity always participates every year. And but before we worked at Unity, that's how we met. We were in different countries, but we still met through the online community that way.
Yeah, I used to handle the venues that happen in Italy. I was looking after them, and I was running one in Rome.
I was running one in Puerto Rico, and so through that kind of community, we got to know each other. And then
even before we ended up working at Unity, right?
Yep. And now we're here continuing to help our community here at Gamescom and beyond.
Yeah.
And so yeah, if you can't make this game jam, keep an eye out in your local communities to see what game jams may be happening that you can attend in person.
Cool.
What else? How much time do you have left?
I don't know, 5 minutes or something.
Cool.
Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat.
Yep.
I see some comments. Same person from before says, the good old times I've learned to program with ActionScript 3. Yeah, me too. Actually, ActionScript 2 first. And then I moved to 3, and then I moved to Unity, and that's when I learned C#, which is the language that Unity uses.
Yep.
Your game is growing with you, and not you with the project. Some big words there.
Yes. No, and it's true, right? You know, when you're starting, like I said before, your game experiences get small, but as you grow and get experience as a creator, your games likewise grow with you, and you know, get bigger and better.
And that's fair. Like, you can have a game project that you carry on for a while, and as you improve, your game improves and grows and stuff. Just be careful, you know, not to put all your bets on that, because that might be risky. That's what I was doing.
Yep.
That's what I advise against. So
we have a great question right now in the chat.
Yes.
What equipment is needed to start? That's an excellent question.
That's a good question.
You don't need much.
A computer.
A computer, yeah, like a computer, but you don't need a super fancy computer. You don't.
Yeah, Unity is cool because it doesn't actually require that great of a hardware. We've seen it all around the world when we travel. We go sometimes to places that don't have, you know, powerful computers, and they're still running Unity. I would say, and this is a question that comes very often, the size of your game determines the hardware that you need.
Absolutely.
It's not really the engine that is eating your processing power, but as you try to create bigger games, then you will need bigger hardware, which is exactly like what your players will need, right?
Yep,
to run them.
Yep, just like you would need a super fancy high-end computer to run a super powerful, you know, gorgeous AAA game. But you can also have small game experiences that work fine on a lower-end computer. So, yep.
Somebody's asking, maybe explain your license system. So, fair point. Maybe not everybody knows that's true. So, Unity works with tiers, right? And we have the personal edition, the Plus, and the Pro.
And Pro, yep.
One very important thing to know, so personal is free.
Yes.
Anyone can use, anyone can download it.
And the personal edition is not just free, for the record, or it doesn't have a paywall on any tools within Unity. Yeah. So you get full access to the full Unity editor with the personal edition.
And you can actually make commercial games. So the fact that it's free for you doesn't mean that you cannot earn money with it. There's just a limit to the money you can, sorry, not to the money. If your company is bigger than a certain size, then you need to buy Unity from us. But that's basically, that's it. That's the only thing.
But if you're an indie getting started at home, just trying to make your first game and figure things out, the editor is completely free for you to try.
The personal is fine, which is one of the big points that I was trying to make before when you know, this revolution started with Unity like 15 years ago. Not many technologies to make games were free. I remember there was another editor, a French. There was another French piece of technology that I remember I was seeing in school. I say, how much does it cost? And it was like 30,000 a license. And I was like, oh my God. And you know, I was like, I will never make games. I need to enter a studio because they have to buy a license for me. So I was trying to build my career in that path, like entering a company. And now I understand that actually you can actually make games on your own.
Yep.
And Unity kickstarted that revolution. Now, today, all of the engines are free, right? But that was something that started with Unity.
Yep.
And just to wrap up, because we're finishing, last question, when visual scripting will be released? So we have this tool, which is visual scripting. It means
Basically using a drag and drop node-based system to program logic for your game instead of, for example, having to hand type it with code. So for people who don't have programming experience, visual scripting is a tool that you can use to kind of set up your game logic instead.
Yeah, and it's something that people have been requesting for a while.
Yep.
It's still a bit far off for a very long discussion that we don't have time to cover now.
Yes.
The whole dot stuff. And so it's coming, but it's going to take another time.
Another time.
Another time.
Coming soon, TM.
There's some third-party solutions that we have on the asset store, which is where you can download like plugins for Unity, basically.
Yep. Like Bolt.
But yeah, our system is still a bit far for complicated reasons.
Yeah. But still, there's also a lot of new features that are being added to Unity all the time, all of which we are demoing at the Unity booth here at Gamescom.
Yeah, if you're
so if you're here at the conference, come on by, say hi to us in person, check out the brand new tools like the HD render pipeline, visual effect graph, shader graph, and more. And
we're in hall 2.1, which is at the very corner of Gamescom. So if you're here on the show floor, here we're in 10.2, which is the Indie Arena booth, where you can play the games. And then in hall 2.1,
yes, correct.
It's us in the business area. So, well, you need to have access to the business area, fair enough.
But if you're here, if by chance you're watching and you're here,
come
you
say
do
hi.
both. Say hi.
Yeah.
And if not, you can also find Ciro and I on Twitter as well as many other Unity staff. So if you want to,
around the world.
Or around the world too. Actually, if you you can check your local game communities to see when we'll be coming in town for workshops, talks, and more. Unity3d.com/events can be a resource as well. And but thanks so much for joining us during this session. And so we'll see you all on the show floor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.